Hello, everyone. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about a book that I just read and that I enjoyed very much. The title of the book is The Biggest Bluff. Here it is, by Maria Konnikova. The subtitle is How I Learned to Pay Attention, Master Myself, and Win. It's a very peculiar story, and Joshua Foer, who is the author of Moonwalking with Einstein, which is a book about memory, but it's a book that also has to do with his 1 year long training in memorizing cards and competing in these competitions of memorizing cards. He calls this book an experiment in participatory journalism. I didn't even know that participatory journalism was a thing, but I understand the meaning of it. This is a book about poker. This is, in short, a book by a woman who got a degree from Harvard, then a PhD in psychology, then went on to write for The New Yorker, very high level job for one of the most respected magazines in the United States. And then all of a sudden, she decided to dedicate at least 1 year to this particular project. She tells the story of how in 2015, a series of things actually happened that were very negative for her and for her family. They were completely beyond their control, and that made her reflect. It's inspiring for a reader like me, and I guess it would be for a reader like you as well, how she describes that moment. And she says, "Until I began this journey, I'd never been a card player. I'd never played poker in my life. I never have even seen a real game. Poker was a non-entity in my mind, but faced with event after event breaking the wrong way, I did what I always do when I try to understand something. I read." And here is a little bit of recognition, at least for me. "Anything that could help shed light on what was happening that would allow me to regain some semblance of control. And in my reading frenzy, I came across John von Neumann, Theory of Games and Economic Behavior. The thing that really struck her in this Theory of Games text by John von Neumann, that is actually used in universities to teach strategy, military strategy, business strategy, etc., is that von Neumann, being the father of the Theory of Games, he actually doesn't really seem to care about many different games or even generally card games. But as Maria Konnikova says, the entire theory of game seemed to be inspired by a single game, poker. Von Neumann wrote, "Real life consists of bluffing, of little tactics of deception, of asking yourself, what is the other person going to think I mean to do? And that is what games are about in my theory." To him, poker represented the ineffable balance between skill and chance that governs life. Enough skill to make playing worthwhile, and enough chance that the challenge was there for the taking. And reflecting on this a posteriori, Konnikova says, "For poker, unlike quite any other game, mirrors life. It isn't the roulette wheel of pure chance, nor is it the chess of mathematical elegance and perfect information. Like the world we inhabit, it consists of an inextricable joining of the two." Personally, I know a little bit about poker, and I would put some caveats to these ideas and these theories, especially by Konnikova and Neumann about poker mirroring life. But I can see how there is a mix. There is a mix of chance and skill, not as much the technical skills of playing the game, knowing the rules, knowing how a particular pair matches up with another, etc., etc., but the actual playing, which involves a lot of psychological skills. And this is why the author, being a PhD in psychology, having written a lot about psychological behaviors and etc., she felt like she had a little bit of an edge in getting into this project, because the project itself, this 1 year that she decides to do after reading the von Neumann book, is to learn completely from scratch, from zero, from knowing nothing about poker, how to play poker. She decides to recruit some of the best poker players in the world and to teach her how to play, with the goal of competing and playing in the World Series of Poker, which is the pinnacle of poker competition that happens every year in Las Vegas. And in particular, she is successful in recruiting as her own coach for this project Erik Sider, who is one of the greatest poker champions in the world. He won so many of these Las Vegas tournaments, but many other global. He really is a huge name in the poker world. And he accepts to be part of this project, mainly because he sees the point of it, that Konikova wants to prove that poker is almost a simulation of life, and therefore it can be used to model life and to learn strategy for life, to win in any situation. And it's very interesting because throughout the whole book, she really learns, and as you read the book, you understand all of her mistakes. Yes, there is a lot of poker that's described in the book, but you don't need to understand poker in order to read the book because it's very basic. And she, by the way, writes in a very exciting way, very clear way. You can see that she has a real gift when it comes to writing. Towards the end of the book, she's also open enough to share the following. She says, author and statistician Nassim Taleb distrusts the premise of my entire project. He believes we cannot use games as model of real life, because in life, the rules derived from games can break down in many unforeseen ways. This is called the ludic fallacy. Games are too simplified, basically. And I would agree with that, but also she admits it, and at the same time, she says that all this experience with poker taught her a lot about how to manage chaos, how to manage the messiness of her life as well. So that's an interesting takeaway that she brings. And it's interesting because this book is from a few years ago, but this project actually made her fall in love with poker. And so even today, she still keeps playing, and she has made a name for herself, especially as a female player, because the statistics, the percentage of female players in the high level of poker tournaments is extremely low. And this is interesting because she also speaks about trying to leverage the prejudice that many players have against a female player. So in short, she became really good, and there are many lessons. I would suggest it to anybody. It's a very, very interesting book. The one takeaway probably that I take from this book is mainly about our self-deceptions, and in particular my self-deceptions, our inability as human beings to see ourselves 100% in a very objective, crystal clear way, as if it was somebody looking at us, basically. You always have a little weakness here and there, or just in general behaviors or mental behaviors that we have a little blind spot about. And thinking about that and trying to focus on at least some of them is a great and is a very healthy exercise. So, The Biggest Bluff, Maria Konikova. This is the book. I'm leaving the link to it in the description box. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.